Donald Trump and the United States government have promised a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but one thing that they failed to mention was the potential of seizing all of these assets because they've been talking about a budget neutral way to obtain more Bitcoin, but it seems like they're looking to seize Bitcoin opposed to actually find other ways to buy it. Now, with this recent development that all got panned out here from a recent seizure from a Chinese citizen, which is an interesting little wrinkle to this. We are seeing now the potential of Donald Trump and the US government tracking Bitcoin wallets, potentially seizing your Bitcoin wallets. And I'm going to tell you why all of this could potentially be connected to Tether, the biggest stablecoin in the world. But first, let's go in and dive in to this interesting little story that we've got here, where some of the 127,000 Bitcoin the US government just seized from a Chinese scam was previously reported for having, quote, a private key vulnerability, which means that now the US government could be potentially hacking Bitcoin wallets now if we look at all of this. So while this is now on the surface looking like, oh, great, the US is adding to their Bitcoin strategic reserve and doing it in a, quote, budget neutral way, well, they are seemingly scamming the scammers here. So you got to ask yourself, okay, if the United States government now has the ability to track and potentially obtain some Bitcoin from the likes of this Chinese scammer, who else are they potentially going to attack here? And is your Bitcoin actually safe? Now, obviously, we've seen Brian Armstrong get in very closely with the United States government. And this is why I always say you need to hold your own keys. But let's back it up here because we've had Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent come out and say that, quote, we will not get any more Bitcoin. We will not buy it, excuse me. So to get into the 21st century, we've started that strategic reserve. But these words come as the amount of Bitcoin holds come under question. Everybody was wondering, how much Bitcoin does the United States government actually hold at this point, right? Because that was the question for a little bit. If we're not going to buy it, and if we're able to do the audit, like many of us can on the Bitcoin blockchain, we're wondering, why are we trying to seize and confiscate Bitcoin instead of just buying it, especially if we get access to the money printer and we could just print money to buy Bitcoin. But it looks like they understand that if they start to do that, if they start to unleash the liquidation into the market, that Bitcoin price will skyrocket in flight and absolutely take off. So if that is the case, the best budget neutral way to obtain Bitcoin then is to seize it, right? So it is very interesting that we're seeing Scott Bessent already slip up and do that Freudian slip not too long ago, saying that they won't buy any Bitcoin for their strategic reserve, but they'll retain those seized assets. So they've always been saying, oh, you know what? We're going to retain that. We're going to retain those seized assets. It's not going to be any other way. And we've even had it dating back to Bo Hines to when he was in there. They were saying, oh, we may sell Fort Knox's gold. But then they realized just how long it might take to actually audit all of Fort Knox's gold to then revalue it. Instead of, doing one of these where they're licking their fingers, just pointing at it, saying, okay, this is how much gold we have. They actually have to go through and check all of the gold, make sure that it's actually valid, and then revalue it at whatever current valuation that they want to do. So that's going to take 12 to 18 months just to do that. That's the estimated time. So it's going to take manpower as the government is on a strike. It makes you think, would the government's dollars actually be worth it at that point? I would say yes, because then you can move that money from gold to Bitcoin. And also, we see how much gold prices is absolutely skyrocketing. But hey, that's another point for another time. So now that we are looking at how the US will potentially get these budget neutral ways, we got to back up and look at Remember Bo Hines? Remember when he was working at the government, folks? He was saying that they could revalue the true value of those gold certificates and they could recognize those gains. But how are they actually going to do these budget neutral Bitcoin reserves at this point? Because it seems like there is no way to do it. It seems like what they're looking at is strictly just seizing the government. And now we have that ex-White House official now into the stable coin realm. And for those of you guys who have been following my channel, you know I've been sketched out by Tether for quite some time. So if you guys have heard me say this before, make sure you're subscribed. If not, let's dive in to how Bo Hines and this connection with Tether is very interesting, because Bo Hines, he's behind the Genius Act, which is essentially a stable coin bill. If you guys remember in the Bitcoin conference, there was clips going around. Everybody was just saying stablecoin this, stablecoin that. Very little talk was actually about Bitcoin. And the major stress was on Bitcoin or on stablecoins. And we've actually seen Michael Saylor switch up his wordings from saying Bitcoin, not crypto, to now using terms like digital assets. And so as I dive into this, I think the connection with Michael Saylor and MSTR is also something very interesting that we need to keep a close eye on. But first, let's stick on to the moment at hand. Let's stick on Bo Hines here, because as this ex-White House official now leading that stablecoin expansion into the United States, it makes you think, when we have Tether now creating USAT, instead of just using the largest stablecoin USDT, why are they doing that? Why are they keeping it and unveiling a brand new stablecoin and having Bo Hines head the back of it? Well, it's probably because that original USDT didn't meet some sort of US regulation, and that the United States government maybe wanted some sort of backdoor in order to stop or halt these funds. Now, we've already seen it from the biggest stablecoins already out there. Circle has already done that. Tether has worked with authorities on multiple occasions. So this isn't anything out of the ordinary. And to be honest, I don't think that the United States government is afraid of Bitcoin or crypto in any means. They want to embrace it, but they just want to make sure that they can control it. And this is a perfect example here, where we have a legit scammer who has hundreds of thousands or has over 100,000 Bitcoin. And now all of a sudden this gets seized, and it gets seized from a UK or in the UK, excuse me, by a Chinese citizen. And now somehow the United States has it. So with all of this, you got to ask yourself, is this potentially going to start some economic and geopolitical battle here? Because it seems like the race to get the most amount of Bitcoin is on, but all of these countries don't want to buy it. They just want to seize these assets. And so USAT and Tether continuing to work as these stable coins in the background and work very closely with governments is very interesting, because, you know, as we start to see more states and more entities allocate to Bitcoin, you got to ask yourself, okay, if they're allocating to Bitcoin, how are they going to do that? Is it going to be through tax dollars? Because it's already been coming out saying that these are some sort of budget neutral ways, opposed to, you know, really diving in and looking at the overall market. And then we also see gold absolutely taking off. And we've seen central banks stacking up gold like crazy, because they all know this quote unquote debasement trade is coming here, right? But they haven't had to steal gold in the past, right? They've been able to hold it, and they've actually been dealt with counterfeit gold, and they don't have to worry about it. They've actually been working with some of the biggest banks in the world manipulating that gold price. I mean, JP Morgan is one perfect example. Not only does JP Morgan had people arrested for manipulating the precious metals markets, they've been duped by counterfeit gold previously. So all of these hard assets that the United States government is seeing, well, they're coming in and saying, well, we don't want to buy Bitcoin. We don't want to allocate any money towards this. But what we want to do is we want to stack hard assets. We understand that this debasement trade is coming, and we have to be prepared for this quote unquote debasement trade. So if this debasement trade is coming and we start to see more people allocate towards this, we need to find that budget neutral way in order to allocate to more Bitcoin. And they haven't been able to find that. We're what? It's what, October right now, so we're 9 months into the Trump presidency and we don't have a single Bitcoin buy. This was a big thing that Trump ran his entire campaign on. And for those of you guys at the channel, you guys know and have heard this talk with me and Mark Moss, and I repeat this a lot because I think it's very interesting. If you look at the adoption cycle of technologies, it usually goes through about a 50-year cycle. The first 10 years, that's retail. The second 10 years, which we're in right now, is institutions. The third 10 years is that governments. And that's where I think we're not going to see any of these Bitcoin buys here until 2028 or maybe 2030, because right now it just takes so much time. So instead, what they're going to do, as governments move very slowly, they're going to seize your Bitcoin. That's what we're already seeing. We're already seeing the likes of, this happen. And then the other thing that we're seeing is now the government is starting to buy up major corporations. So what is the other way that they could obtain Bitcoin, right? They could start buying up. We see the United States absolutely go parabolic here with their holdings. We could see them potentially start to scoop up companies like MicroStrategy, right? Strategy was 640,000 Bitcoin. Well, you've seen Michael Saylor and Eric Trump pictured together. You've seen them all happening at Mar-a-Lago, and you continue to see what these guys are doing. And, you see Eric Trump come in and saying things like this: 2 friends, 1 passion. That's Bitcoin. So with Saylor kind of getting intertwined with the Trumps, you got to be cautionary with how we're treading on these waters, because these guys are looking at Bitcoin and looking at it as an extremely juicy asset, right? It's the best performing asset since it's been created. And they don't want to find ways to buy it. So what are they doing? Just hockey sticking it, leveling up. And on top of it, we're going to get into how this is all connected to the potential US and UK special relationship that I've been talking about here on this channel for quite some time. But first, if you want to stack your Bitcoin, you don't want to sell it. All these things that I'm lining out here, you want to get and obtain as much Bitcoin as possible because you see the writing on the wall. All of these guys are coming, and they're coming very quickly. So to avoid selling your Bitcoin, you could strictly just borrow against it. You could go to saltlending.com/green-candle today. And if you do that, they will give you guys a special offer only for the Green Candle listeners. So you guys got to hurry up and sign up. You got to go to this link, because if you don't, they're not going to know that Green Candle sent you, and they're not going to understand that I'm sending you guys and giving you guys a special deal. I'm telling Hunter and the boys over there, hey, you got to hook up the candies. If you guys are listening to me blab about this stuff, then you guys got to go to saltlending.com/green-candle, because they have the best rates in the game, starting at just under 9% with a 12-month duration, and you could borrow up to a 70% LTV. And you need to do that quickly, because this US and UK special relationship is getting oh so interesting, because we are now having a more than likely similarity between the US and the UK. Because at first everybody was saying, oh, if we look at Canada, potentially freezing bank accounts, we look at the UK, this will never happen in the US. Well, newsflash, folks, it's already happening. And they're creating this, quote, special relationship because it's a task force. They're using specific words to describe how they're going to monitor you already. And as we've got the chat blowing up here, it says, always walk slowly and carry a big stick. said the government, because we will just rip off everybody's Bitcoin. Exactly, man. They are definitely thieves out here stealing it. They realize that, hey, they're not able to buy up all this Bitcoin. Because like I said, if they, if they buy Bitcoin and they start telling people that's going to happen, Bitcoin's price is going to absolutely take off. So it's just going to get more expensive for them. So, the dollar has too much demand, and the relief valve in the demand is definitely there. I appreciate it, UJ5K. If you guys haven't checked it out, there is a great interview on the channel. I'll get to that here at the end. Finish watching all of this first, of course, but as we see this task force start to roll out, you got to wonder, right? How is this going to be connected with the potential of these digital ID cards? Because this contentious idea that Mr. Kerr Starmer is saying here, I mean, look at that guy's face. That guy just looks like, some sort of scammer here. I mean, I could go into a little rant like Donald Trump would here and just rip on the guy's face and his looks, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it classy here on the Green Candle channel. But if you look and listen to what he was saying, he said, let me reiterate, I will force everybody to have a digital ID if you want to work in the United Kingdom. So that's if you want to work. That's 30 million people wanting to work in the UK, and you're going to be forced to have a digital ID. And this is all connected with how the EU is rolling out their CBDC, that digital euro. The digital euro was actually supposed to be launched earlier this month. Luckily, that has been delayed. But the connection with the UK, the EU, and the US is getting closer than you think. We've had this globalist agenda to bring everybody together and very close here. And the United States seizing all of this, even though you might be saying to yourself, okay, this person was maybe a criminal. Where does it stop? What is that line? It seems like the United States is always going to be looking for ways to obtain Bitcoin without having to buy it. So the United States continuing to seize assets is something very interesting, right? Because they seize assets through forfeiture. We've had it where in California, they seize assets that are, they seize crypto after 3 years of it stagnant, which is very interesting, right? Because California already has it, that if it's left idle on Bitcoin exchanges after 3 years, it's looked at as, quote, unclaimed property loss. Now, of course, California isn't the entire United States, right? Of course. There is a little dystopia when it comes to California. But, I mean, if this is already happening, and I think I've lost sound already, but if this is already happening in one area of the United States, what makes you think that it's not going to come to your home? And that's the unfortunate part of what we are seeing, right? Because the United States has already somewhat proven that wallets with private key vulnerabilities, those are at risk, folks. Donald Trump and these guys are not your friends. Seeing Larry Fink, Jamie Dimon, all of these big players now all of a sudden bending the knee to Bitcoin. Is this realistically, you got to ask yourself, is this realistically them just doing this out of the kindness of their heart, or are they doing this because there's something deeper in there? Oh my God, the legend McLovin with the $10 super chat. You are a legend, good sir. I always love seeing McLovin. Big shout out to McLovin, man. I am so appreciative of you, man. You come and watch every single one of my videos. I always love that you comment on it. It truly means a lot to me that you're coming and tuning in. You're always one to contribute to the chat as well. So I just want to give a special shout out to McLovin, and I really do appreciate the super chat, man. It means a lot. And for those of you guys who keep coming to the chat, you know McLovin, he's always a staple in here, and he's a legend in itself. So, but back to the matter at hand here. Let's get to the juicy stuff because Love Everyone is saying it kind of makes you wonder backdoor keys. Historically, the CIA has bullied all software developers. And we've actually already kind of seen this where the $5 wrench attacks, you know, what they've said. Are they going to come and get your Bitcoin? That is a potential, right? And there is a cabal of backdoor keys of all these cold storage wallets where I think the biggest issue is this chart right here. Because if you look and you sit and look at all of the Bitcoins on exchanges right now, these, 2.18 million or so Bitcoin, not all of them are held in Bitcoin wallets, right? That are on exchanges. Some of them are just held by the exchanges ready for people to buy them. But a lot of these Bitcoin that is on exchanges are already on wallets, right? And they just haven't been taken into cold storage. Now, if you look at Brian Armstrong and Coinbase, what is some move that they've made here very, very recently, right? They're looking at instantaneous transfers. So because they're looking at instantaneous transfers, Coinbase has filed for a banking charter and a banking license. So Coinbase, looking at the federal trust banking license, even though they claim they have, quote, no ambitions to become a bank, but they want to allow you to make payments. And we've seen Brian Armstrong go in back and forth and actually rip on banks, which is interesting enough, and say, oh, we're going to disrupt them. Even though he's years ago said he would never get political, all of these different aspects about politics are absolutely crazy. So he didn't want to get involved in any of it. But now Brian Armstrong's here and he's saying, oh, look at this. It's all great. And then he's saying, I've never been more bullish on what it is. Never been more bullish about the clear rules for crypto. It's obvious that the market structure is a freight train. I mean, these guys, like I'm saying, it hasn't stopped the big banks coming for another handout, right? I mean, these guys, they're looking at crypto rewards. That's basically their biggest thing. It's absolutely insane. Like, why do they think that these stable coins, like we've said, if the yield is 4.5%, 5% on these stable coins, you got to ask yourself, where's that yield coming from, right? Something smells fishy here when it comes to Brian Armstrong. And this is why I'm a big proponent of self-custody, guys. I'm actually heading out to Prague here on Sunday to hang out with my friends over at Tether because they've got some big announcement coming next week. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. I can't. I wish I could. But be on the lookout for something big coming next week from Tether. In the meantime, you could go to Tether.io or the affiliate link down below. Go to that affiliate link and help your boy out. Just go peruse around there and see what they've got. And you can go in and use promo code GreenCandle 5. I believe it won't let me do it because I've already got it on there. But yes, you could use promo code GreenCandle 5 for 5% off your entire order. So I prefer the Bitcoin only editions. But hey, you guys can get whatever you'd like. They also have onboarding sessions. They've got a lot of great stuff there. But I like to call this the Green Candle Bundle because if you go to Tether, you get yourself a hardware wallet. Then you go to cryptosteel.com/greencandle. And you could get literally any type of metal backup here. They've got 12, 24. They've got some of the easiest solutions ever. And the great thing and the reason why I like crypto steel so much is that all these other, seed phrase plates, if somebody just looks at it, they can have it, right? But with a crypto steel, one, you don't need a hammer. Two, you can get that. You could get a tamper seal on there. So if anybody opens up your seed phrase, you're going to know immediately if somebody got access to that. There's no other backup in the game that has that. So that's why I really enjoy giving a deal for you guys for all of these, because so you could save sats while you protect yours. You can use Green Candle for 10% off that entire order for both sides. So go ahead and do that because, hey, as they're showing here, River, they've got a great chart here that's showing, hey, look at this, 10% dip. Look at how many people are buying, right? The hodlers love these dips. They just keep on scooping them up as much as possible. I mean, the more people that we see really start to go in and buy Bitcoin, I mean, hey, the more craziness that we're going to start to see, right? So I think that the volatility is just really getting started. And I think you need to safely protect your Bitcoin because we're seeing Coinbase apply for banking charters. We're seeing, them meeting all of these guys together. We're seeing a lot of craziness. So make sure you guys are hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button for me, telling a friend to tell a friend. Thank you. My man, terrible trader in the house saying, "Hey, I mean, the least I could do is save the dog." So for all the ladies in the chat, I am in Montreal currently, and I'll be traveling the world. So hit my DMs, they're wide open. There you go, Dub. Buy more Bitcoin. Keep that DCA going. Hit the subscribe button for me, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.